Hello,
Hi,
I'm Marcin Słowikowski.
and I'm Jakub Krassowski.
We will be talking about Whirls of Pontar happening this August in Poland.
This will be mainly our conversation about the things and themes that interest us.
Something to broaden your perspective on the things you already have in the LARP guide and all the materials on larpventure.com.
I hope you will enjoy the conversation as much as I do. Let's get on with it.
Why Whirls of Pontar emerged?
There's not enough ritual LARPs in the world. That's the reason. We were talking some time ago about the nostalgia about Witcher School and about other Witcher LARPs we participated in or organized, and that the Creeping Night was a cool project, but it gave us only a taste of what Witcher World has to give, and we want more. We want to explore the world in a grander way, exposed to something different than a small village in the middle of nowhere.
Actually, we will be meeting in a small village, but in the middle of very particular place because it's on the border between Temeria and Redania. So
Yes.
Can we have more outside world coming in, knocking on the door?
Well, that is the reason why Whirls of Pontar are set in this crucial spot in the world. It might be not the biggest town in the world, of course it isn't, but Tassels and Flockburg are strategically placed in the middle of Pontar, very close to Novigrad, and as I saw on the map recently, actually you're also close to Oxenford. So there's this influence with two large Redanian or independent townships, and that gives us access to the world and influence over the world, not only receiving influence from outside.
Mm-hmm. And I think the smaller scale for this LARP is actually more playable because it's really hard to mess up with the big scale politics. Because we know all the players on the board, right? There are kings, sorceresses, and we more or less know what happens in the story. But if it is in the smaller scale, we can have players to actually have full access to this local politics, and they can change whatever they need and whatever they want. So the stakes are getting higher in this situation.
So you remain in the context of the grander world, but the influence you're getting is clearly visible in this microcosm of a political sphere of those two small towns. Yeah, I think that's the idea. Why is it so important to have this influence so visible clearly in the game?
I think it's because LARP is a game, right? First and foremost. So you have some goals to achieve. You want to have the agency. You want to have the means to push your narrative. So if you are in the story that actually only your private plot is being pushed, but the rest is set in stone, it's not as satisfying. And I think that was also one of the things that Witcher School players were saying, that they cannot change the outcome of the big politics, that they cannot influence the school other way than by voting on something between two options given by the organizers. And I believe in Tassels Flockburg, we have much more freedom. And also, this will be a continuous story, and we don't have anything set in stone. So the decisions of players will influence where we will go with the politics, with the town, with different groups. And what I found really interesting is we can have different groups in both Polish and international games. So the course of the action can go completely different. And then maybe at the third installment, we'll have completely different places with completely different problems.
That makes it quite complex from an organizational perspective, but let's worry about that later. First and foremost, yeah, this influence that and freedom of movement, freedom of decision that are ingrained deeply in the Whirls of Pontar is something that is very motivating for me to make this game. Yeah, we were joking about moving the border between Redania and Temeria. We can do it. So right now the border is somewhere along a bridge between Tassels and Flockburg, but there is a lot of territory between the gates of Tassels and the border bridge. So if a Redanian patriot or a Temerian one wants to move the border one way or another, there will be an opportunity to do that.
Except of the setting, well-known setting and very well-liked setting, what else makes this game richer? What brings the vibe of the stories, games, books that is loved so much?
One of the main things that is gripping for me in this universe is that it plays like it's medieval or let's say old, with old morality and stuff, but actually our main heroes of the story have a very modern mindset and a very modern understanding of the world that we as modern people can relate to and can experience those differences of a more primitive world, but with our modern mindsets and sensibilities. That is somewhat anachronistic, as those things shouldn't fit together, but somehow that makes the world click and the world be readily interpreted by those who read the books, those who play the games, and those who participate in LARP. So we can use our modern sensibilities to experience that magical world of Witcher. That's gripping for me.
Yeah, and I also think that a big hit for this world, this universe, is this moral dilemmas. And most of the time, you don't have the good option, because whatever you thought is a good solution for the problem actually might not be. And this big dilemma of Geralt, lesser and bigger evil. Is it so? Can we choose lesser evil? Or is it lesser? Is it still evil? And I believe this type of themes, this type of matters and subjects for the plots is something that people want to engage, because I believe the world is not black and white. And that's why the traditional fantasy is not as appealing in LARPs. That
falls flat.
It's really hard to draw a line. And this LARP is about borders, about drawing borders, pushing borders, blurring borders and boundaries. So this fits exactly in the theme of where the border is, who is evil and who is good. And not only from the moral perspective, but also from the perspective of rich and poor, Temeria and Redania, people who are for and against a subject matter that is ingrained in the Flockburg Tassels. So this brings a lot of opportunities to role play and to get connected. Because I feel this is something that is unique for this franchise. People are getting connected through emotions, not only through action.
Yeah. There is also this thing that it's a colorful world with some elements that we like, and we know other LARPers also like magic, like monsters, like those very clearly distinctive lands like Temeria and Redania, and you mentioned, or others that will also affect the story. So yeah, we talked about those, let's say, storytelling part of that, but there is this content also that is very engaging. Those characters that you can meet in the game, and that some of them will be present within the LARP also.
That is something that also is dream of some LARPers, to put on the Witcher armor, wield two swords, one for humans and one for monsters.
Honestly, from my perspective, if we can all be Witchers, then the uniqueness of the Witcher in the Witcher world gets a bit bleaker, and the stories we can tell are much more limited. And the approach we are taking with multiple groups with different perspectives, we have some corrupt guards and someone completely different with different modalities as artisans that are doing business and not kicking asses, if I could say so. And the whole spectrum of possibilities, if we could look at them only through the eyes of a bunch of witchers, that would be very limiting.
Mm-hmm.
And cut out such immense amount of content that can be addressed. Yeah. So
I also feel that either you can have everybody to be a Witcher, or there is no Witcher at all. This type of stakes differ because you have completely different game for the superhuman powerful mutants and different game for other people. And I've seen some games that introduced both, but still the most connected part of the Witchers with the others was rather politics.
So there was this Witcher with those wonderful powers, but they were doing politics, right?
They were also having special tasks for them, like killing monsters, of course, but still other people could not access to that plots.
So you had two classes of players, actually, right?
Yeah, I would say not two classes, but like two different games in one.
Interesting. So building on that, if we have 20 something distinctive groups and they have so distinctive experiences, aren't we having 20 something different games?
I would say none of these groups are as distinct. And if we talk about distinction, for me, it would be people from here, locals, and people who come for the fair. These will be a bit different experiences. But still, when we were designing the groups of the new people, the people who come here, there is still a possibility for them to start growing roots in this place. For some groups, it's more obvious than for the others, but still they can become the same structure. They can become a part of the same local community if they want, because there's always a possibility that they will deal with all they need and they will go out, and then there's still possibility for them to come back for the same fair the next year. So this would be the division in the types of game, let's say. But as we said, we want some broader scope on that world. We want some outside perspective and some bigger politics to happen in our little town.
Yeah, tasty. So this will be a game about a community that is found on the border, but also about those external groups that come here and affect our set ways of doing things. So
I
it will be
think
like a melting pot of.
I think what is the best to describe the situation is we are celebrating. There is a moment of celebration. There is a fair. So we are not showing every day. It's not slice of life in this situation.
No.
It's one in a year possibility to do something else than we do every day. So when you are a brewer, you won't be brewing because you do it all the time. But today is the fair, so there is a possibility to sell your product for somebody who is not from here. Maybe write some contract with people to sell, to export, let's say, your produce. That is something that makes this opportunity you want to take care of some business right here and right now. Otherwise, it might wait for the next year, next fair. And for some groups, it's also possibility to have a relaxing moment because they are working hard throughout the year.
To celebrate.
So
fun.
They are also celebrating. And for some, that might be also a possibility to change something. The possibility to shake the boat, let's say, because they want something to change in this community. So that's why we are focusing on this special moment of the year. And that's why we want to come back the next year for the next fair to see how these actions and decisions affected the town.
So, but we don't need to wait a full year to see those results, right? We want the results to be visible here and now, and also be, let's say, more developed, have more broad consequences, long-term consequences experienced next year. But that doesn't mean that we're doing something and then waiting a year for anything to change in the world.
Whenever I want to get my money, I can get it here and now. But the investment from that money I will get, I will see what happens with it a year later.
Yeah, I understand the distinction. Yeah. Okay, so this gives us a bit of both, right? An immediate effect and also an ability to tell a broader story.
Yeah, so I like to have this overarching theme. So it's not only a particular characters that are telling their stories. This is for the players to have fun with. But from our perspective as designers, we are telling the story about the town. And it was a bit similar in Witcher School, that players had their input on their personal stories, but the overarching story of the Witcher School, of the collapse of the Witcher School, was something bigger and something that was setting the stage for a player's actions. But here is the difference, that we don't have anything set in stone. We are not telling this, this is a story about how Tassel's Flockburg became a great point on the map or got destroyed during the war. We don't know that. And we want to tell the story about the town as a consequence of the player's actions. Because right now, we have some kind of wibbly-wobbly politics and status quo set. But there will be players who will come here for the fair as their characters, and they will shake everything. That's what I expect.
Everything up. Yeah.
Yes. And we will give a lot of opportunities for them to shake the situation with our NPCs, with our plots, with our conflicts that we build for them, but we don't know the results. We don't know who will be having more influence and who will have less. So this is something that is interesting. And seeing it in a scope of a year, gives us the possibility to develop things.
So the hero of our story, this small community, is something that we will look at through the lens of the groups of those particular characters, but also through the lens of time that allows us to develop some stories.
Do you have your favorite groups on the list? If you could play the game?
That changes, some days I'm opting more for that group. Other days I'm very much interested in taking part in another group. So there's a couple, the Goat Brothers. That's how they're called. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a group that was probably invented as a joke, just placeholder name when we were talking about game design, but actually as we were asking questions, but who are those guys? What's interesting about that group? Then it grew to a very characteristic, a bit tongue-in-the-cheek group, but that can be interpreted quite seriously. And I'm not sure if Alina would agree with me, but I get a big chunk of Peaky Blinders vibe. So simple guys that do simple violence, and they are smarter than the whole world, and they then want to challenge the whole world, but the world punches them down often.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the group of hardheads, and that's interesting for me to play this contrast between ambition and real ability. But with a bite that they actually do. So initially, this was my favorite group, but it changes whenever I get to know some other groups better. I'm interested in them much more. Tanners, right? Those guys that work with leather, those are interesting. For some of the same reasons, because those are bastards. But they are dealing in much more of economical plots. I'm guilty. I like economics during LARPs. I like managing not virtual resources, but this ability to make business in a game. That's interesting how that can roll out. So quite different approaches. One is fist, one is trade.
I believe what is really nice is that these groups have different morals, different skills, and different points of interest, I would say. Because for honors, you can find artisans that will be a bit different in one of the axes, but on the same axis as them from the political or economical stance. And this is what feels like a real possibility to play on this little conflicts, little differences, and to create and shape the politics. Because what I don't like in LARPs is the politics that we are discussing that don't affect us. We are discussing the politics that will affect people somewhere, I don't know, sometime. And here we are talking about our interest. That's why I call these groups of interests, because when one group gets what they want, some other groups will lose something, either influence or money or a bit of their own heart, let's say. This is what is interesting, because it gets personal. Me, myself, I come from a little town where everybody knows everybody. And the cliques that are forming, not only in politics, but also in the mundane things. We have this Polish story about two neighbors. They are fighting over the ridge of their fields, right? And this is something that creates 3 movies about one particular
That's true.
families. And we can have that because this is their old world. The old goat that, I don't know, somebody killed by the accident, and they don't have a way to sustain their life.
Yeah, so you were mentioning politics many times today, and I get that you don't mean this overarching world politics, or even who becomes, let's say, a mayor. That's not the object, but the first perception when you use the word politics usually either goes with diplomacy or with political offices. And what you're describing is those groups of interests challenge themselves and fight directly or more often indirectly on exerting their influence over others, over the community. Yeah. So I don't know any other word except politics that would reflect
local politics.
Yeah, so the local governor or the head of let's say artisans. That is what the word politics implies in my head. So it's important that we distinct or add something to the local politics that is not fighting for office. No. That is fighting for very concrete things that my group wants and the other groups have.
Yeah, there is this very vivid example in the descriptions of the groups. So brewers lost several barrels of their brew of beer. Nobody knows who did it. There are no evidence of that.
Moonshiners,
but
who lost their license?
What is said, the brewers will think it's moonshiners. Yeah. This is what I call local politics. This is what is happening. And this particular example, if moonshiners did it, because that would be in their way of dealing with things,
probably.
This is also, they did it for some reason. And this is their way of influencing the town. And if somebody beats somebody in the dark street, and the guards will turn their heads the other way, this is also part of politics.
Yes, this is how guards can affect how those forces work in this town.
And
they have the power.
Half of the town is Temerian, half of the town is Redanian. So in the guards, we have both nationalities. We have both offices.
But
so how Redanians... Yes.
Okay.
This is what also makes it so interesting. How Redanians will guard Temerian people. And how they will deal with each other. Do they have the common ground? Or is there internal conflict in the group? So there's
I want to play the game.
There is a lot of these borders installed in the story. In the groups, internal conflicts in the groups is something that we care more than external conflict.
Yes.
And we know as Polish people that sometimes you put aside your internal conflict to deal with the external conflict. Yeah. That is something, it's proverbial.
Interesting dynamic. Yeah. We can be like the worst neighbors and fighting over some minute things, but with very serious resources. And then this external thing comes, and then we're just like that, united against the common enemy. Yeah.
We cannot forget about the situation in the world right now, because we start our story at the same point as the Witcher 3 video game is starting. So the war with Nilfgaard is upon us. And we will have these echoes of the war already in the first installment. For most people, war is fight, front, weapons, bullets, whatever. We know how it affects the cost of living. New taxes.
Yes. New opportunity for business.
Some people need to go there to fight. And there is a group of veterans, war veterans, that will come. And we have a group of non-humans. The conflict is growing because of also political reasons.
Yeah, so a big melting pot of everything with a big backdrop of a war brewing and how it can develop. We have this bright and well lit, literally well lit with lanterns, safe zone with where the fair and the fun and the celebration is the focus. When we can expect some lighter tones in the story, we have this zone of death and danger on the other end that allows for a bit more adventure, maybe a touch of magic, a bit more than a touch actually, but yeah, and allows to see the wondrous part of the Witcher world, and to experience the adrenaline rush of things spinning out of control and having really grave consequences. So you have this possibility, and you have the space in between where tough people make tough decisions, and maybe the sense of physical danger is not that pronounced, but the stakes are high, maybe even the highest in that particular zone, because most of the shady dealings, most of the let's say business negotiations, and also local politics will be happening mostly in this gray zone where there's not a clear definition of good and evil.
And also what kind of experience you want, because I believe that deals can happen in both, in all of the three zones.
Yes.
But it depends. Are you trying to negotiate like with every official ways you have and arguments you have? Or if you are making any shady deals, you are doing it with the smile on your face. Or if you are trying to put on some verbal abuse, let's say, in the story and sword, so moderate danger section, or maybe make some threats, and then you can pay somebody to break some news.
Convince somewhat at knife point.
I believe that we have more and more people who know what kind of experience they want from the game. It's up to the players where they want to play their game, what kind of experience they want to have. And what for me is brilliant about this idea, it's we can go out of our comfort zone. We can also spread our own boundary. So if I am the person that likes to be cozy and, dress well and rich and have this nice meeting of important people talking about trade contracts and things like that, I still can have a moment when I will go to more shady place to look for some trouble. And other way around, if I prefer more physical play, more of this dangerous adrenaline-driven game, and I don't feel comfortable with this fancy pants situations, I still can go, I don't know, for one evening to check on that.
Yeah,
it's people who will decide. And also, it will be really interesting to see how the crowd is moving between these lines and how these lines will be blurred. if they will. So this is so interesting, and how people will interpret it also is interesting, because what I feel is international community is playing LARPs a bit differently than Polish community. That is what I really want to see. I want to see how Polish players will tackle the problem, and at the same time how international crowd will tackle the same problem, and what kind of solutions they will find for the same problems.
Yeah, and circling back to how it was done in Witcher School, that could be tackled basically in a single vote. So it's a yes or no decision. Right now, we have so many possibilities of how the story unfolds and how the influence can be projected onto others, that it gives us so many possibilities of outcomes.
And you know what's funny? The same as with Crystallium, about some outcomes we will learn only from the feedback forms from players. So because we don't have this situation when people will vote for one thing or the other, so we won't know everything that happened. And I remember reading the reports from players, and I was like covering my head. I was like, this happened? Really? That's so cool. I didn't know about it, because this is not something that we set in the game. That was the input of players. And this is what I also expect will astonish and shock us several times, if not more, in Whirls of Pontar, because the structure is so wide that it fills the field for people to introduce their own conflicts, their own solutions, and maybe also some kind of cooperations we won't see common.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
What I wanted to ask you also is, because we did one international run of the Creeping Night. Also a LARP set in the Witcher world in a small village. Can you elaborate on the differences between those two games for the people who played or read about the Creeping Night?
Yeah, so I was involved in designing the Creeping Night, but also I'm involved right now in Whirls of Pontar. So I can make those distinctions. The Creeping Night is very narrowly closed into a set of themes and set of emotions, and Whirls of Pontar is a much more open design. So the Creeping Night, in the title or in the subtitle, the story about fear. And fear and its various kinds are the emotion that gets explored. The community is way smaller. It's like less than 30 people in the community, and then about the same with the people from outside of it. And the themes of the game and the plots of the game are engaging and tightly intertwined, but also only a couple of them. And those things that happen engage a vast majority of players, or a significant part of players. And the outcomes also are something that everybody shares. In contrast, Whirls of Pontar, with its greater scope, more openness, and a more diverse set of roles for the players, allows for much more varied stories to be told, and also to experience the story with a few emotional attitudes and few let's say styles, right? Based on only that, a closed idea of a game, and an idea of a game that is open, varied, and steerable. That's the word. That's the word. You can more easily affect what style of game are you playing? So you can choose between those very distinct spheres of play, with a very easy tool of using your two legs and choosing the zone where you want to be in that particular moment.
Is there anything else we want to tackle in terms of Whirls of Pontar?
Honestly, I think we should do it next time. And something I would like to talk about is what makes the location big part of the story and how we can drive it, not only using the zones that we mentioned, but using the unique geography of the islands and the two villages and the space between them.
Because we are
that
playing
was
on
more.
islands, not only in the world of The Witcher, but on actual islands on
Actual
Baltic
islands.
Sea.
So this map that is in the LARP guide, it's an actual map of the physical location of the game.
And I would also like to talk more about different groups and the overarching themes of the groups, because we have 24 different groups of interests created with 4 different themes that they tackle. Well, I see 3, but I understand why the 3rd and 4th were disjointed. So I think this is also something that we can bring more light to in our conversation.
Yeah. So same time next week.
Yeah. See ya.